Hi everybody, Kathleen here. I want to welcome any new viewers. I have a few new viewers since my last video, and if you just happen to accidentally find yourself here from searching for knitting videos and things like that on YouTube, welcome. If you only stay for a few minutes, you only catch a few minutes, that's totally fine too. Looking forward to having you join me a little more frequently. I want to also thank my OG viewers, people who've been with me for a while. Thanks so much for sticking with me too. You can find me on Instagram. I have notes. You can find me on Instagram as thepurlednest, and you can find me on Ravelry as Specialkholla. I am not on Facebook. I am not on TikTok. You're not going to find me either of those places. I'm not a huge fan of major social media. Since the last episode, lots and lots has happened. Lots of activity, lots of acquisitions, lots of learning experiences, a new craft journey, and a vacation. We are actually going to have a giveaway in this as well, so stay tuned. At some point in here, I will talk about the giveaway and what it's going to be. But first off, let's talk about and I don't think you can see it. Let's see if I can get it for you. There, right there. You see that? That's my new loom. It is a Schacht 25-inch rigid heddle loom on a stand. And I think I'm pronouncing it correctly, Schacht. And I have all the supplies that go with it too, and I'll show that later. I'm gonna try and rotate you back here. There we go. So that was a fun journey. I actually, for my wedding anniversary, 33 years, thank you to my wonderful hubby. For my wedding anniversary, I was gifted some weaving lessons, and I think it took me like 3 Saturdays to actually finish the projects, and I will try somewhere here maybe to put pictures of the projects that I made. I made a couple of dish towels in those lessons, and things were learned and things were not necessarily learned, but we'll get into that in a little bit. But I did finish those, and I think if I could do it again, I might choose a slightly different approach. I might pick a different instructor. I don't know. I'm not really sure about that. I feel like I'm learning quite a lot from YouTube, quite frankly. But I did actually finish the loom myself. So they assembled it for me. And then I brought it home and I bought some tung oil, which is a natural oil for finishing wood, and took the whole thing apart, made sure I took pictures of everything, how it was together, and finished it all with tung oil and left the tung oil on it sat on the floor right there for like 2 weeks, something like that, while we were on vacation. And when I came home, I wiped it all down. So I let the tung oil cure on there, and then I wiped it all down and put it all back together again, and then started my first project. But we'll get into that in just a minute. So, actually, you know what I need? I need to grab at least one of those dish towels to show you. So hold on just a second. And we're back. So what I had to go grab for you was some of the projects that I finished with the loom. These are some of my finished objects. I'm trying not to wiggle the table too much. So in the class, I'm going to use that term loosely, but in the learn to weave sessions that I took, shall we say, some of the things that I made 2 dishcloths for my kitchen. That was my intention. I do have some of the yarn here, actually. Let me show you the yarn first. So this is the yarn I used, this teal color, and then this oatmeal. Let's see, yeah, that's good. Like this oatmeal color. This is a cotton linen blend, and I can actually tell you exactly what it is because I kept the tag. It is Rowan Creative Linen, and it is made with linen and cotton. It says 50% linen, 50% cotton, made in Romania, And this, I believe, was fingering weight yarn. I'm pretty sure was, oh, it might have been like, it might have been a DK, now that I think of it actually. This might be DK yarn. It's 219 yards, how much is on here? Per 100 grams, 219 yards per 100 grams. I think that's DK. 200 meters per 100 grams. And 21 stitches over 4 inches is the gauge. I think that's DK. I should have checked that first. Anyway, it is the Rowan Creative Linen. And with that, I made this. So this was the first one. So this was the first one that I did. And the second one that I did them with the same warp. So I warped the loom and I did enough to get 2 dish towels. And I probably could have gotten maybe a couple washcloths out of it too, maybe 1 washcloth out of it. But I was still so new at it, and I had to take the classes there, and I had to leave the loom there when I took the classes. And so I couldn't work on it at home or anything like that. So I felt a little hampered, and I really, really wanted to be able to do it at home. They wouldn't let me take it home. It's just kind of, they just keep the looms there and you just go whenever you can. The part of the struggle I had was that it's only open 8 to 5 Monday through Friday. And then I think maybe 8 to 5:30 on Saturday, and they're closed on Sunday. So I work a regular day job, so I couldn't get in during the week to do any kind of weaving. And then, so I could only do it on Saturdays. So I had 3 Saturdays I did it over. And I feel like I could have gotten a lot better, a lot faster if I could have brought it home with me and done some of that at home too. There's pros and cons because when you're there, there's somebody to ask questions. My first session was really good because the gal stayed with me pretty much most of the time I was there. She was also working. She's one of the gals who works there, so she was also like helping customers and stuff like that, but she would stop when I got to a particular stopping place. She would stop and come help me and explain something to me and then kind of leave me on my own to do that stage. And so the next 2 Saturdays after that, though, I was kind of on my own. It was a little tricky getting someone to help me. I had to go seek people out to get them to help me to, figure out the different stages I was at. So they're not great, the first 2. Like, I don't know if you can see, they're not holy, but they could have been woven a little more tightly. You have to be careful you don't weave it too tightly because then you end up with a stiff fabric. I don't know that I definitely know I wouldn't choose this yarn again to make these. I think I would choose maybe a thinner warp. I could maybe actually use this yarn if I chose a thinner warp. I don't like that kind of checkerboard look to it. I was looking for more of a solid look. So if I used a thinner warp and the thicker weft, then you would only see the weft for the most part. So these are things I'm learning watching YouTube. Thank you, Fiber Love Diary. And what's the other one called? Something Rehash. Fiber Rehash? I think Fiber Rehash. Anyway, we'll talk about that later. So this was the first one. Back here you can see where I wove in my ends. I feel like there must be a better way to do that too. I'm not really sure. I'm still figuring that out. Also, I did these, and you can kind of see, like, this is where I started and this is where I ended. So you see how much shorter it is? Like, I got better at weaving and it wasn't quite so loose as I went along. This end, the narrower end, is where I finished on the first one before I started the second one. And the second one's just basically a reverse of these stripes. It's big green stripes, big teal stripes, and skinny, narrow oatmeal stripes. So lessons were learned. And I did do a folded over hem for these. And that's fine. It does make it a little stiffer on the ends. It's okay. I think maybe for some weaves it might be good. I did zigzag over top. So I made basically a selvage and then I folded it over a 1/4 inch and then folded it over another 1/4 inch and then zigzagged over top of that. And I used a gray thread, and actually you can't see it at all. Like you can you see the little ends of the thread? That was what I sewed. Actually, I did a pretty good job sewing it now that I look at it, but lessons were learned in the weaving. So the second one actually looks better, but of course it's in the washing machine. Then my next finish objects were, again, more lessons learned. I decided I wanted to make a bunch of dishcloths for my house. So because I'm learning, I just got the cheapest yarn I could get. I got a couple of these cones of the sugar and cream yarn. This is just sugar and cream cotton. This one was like Caribbean Sunset or Sunrise or something like that. And then this is just white. This is basically green, light blue, white, and a coral color leaning towards orange. And then the white. And so when I did my warping, I did mostly this, but then I did, in the white, I did 1/3 of the way from the left side. I did 1/3 in a white stripe. So my hope was to come up with some kind of, when I was then doing my weaving with the weft, come up with some interesting designs. And I didn't want each one to be the same. I had planned for 6 and I ended up getting 7 out of it. I was planning for making 6 of them. So I was doing the calculations based on a 10 by 10 dishcloth and how much warp I needed to run and put on the loom in order to be able to make 6 of them at 10 by 10. I actually ended up getting 7 out of it, and the first one was bigger than 10 by 10, but the rest of them were pretty much 10 by 10. So here's one of them. So you can see, and maybe if I do it this way, it's more like how it was on the loom. So this white section here, this is where I had the white warp, and then this is all done with this variegated yarn for warping. And because it's variegated, it has some areas where, like, you can see where that orange kind of ends, and that's just because it goes into the white section of it. So it has a little bit of a plaid look just because of the way this variegated yarn works, which is pretty cool. But you'll see in there, if you look carefully, if you were here, I could show you some of the floats that I have. You don't really notice the ends that I had to weave in, which is great. They are hidden a little better with this yarn, and I think this yarn is key. It hides it a little better. But also, when I was weaving, I didn't know to do a hem stitch on either end of the dishcloths, because the place where I learned, they said, oh yeah, you just leave like a 1-inch warp gap between them. I have this tool, and I'll show you in a little bit. I have this tool I can use. It looks like this comb that you can make the selvage basically on the ends. Let's see. Yeah, so these ends are a little tighter than the main body. And I don't know that you can really see it that well. But then she said, oh yeah, then you can just zigzag over the end and catch all the warp. Or is it the weft? Yeah, catch all the warp. And you'll be fine. Well, I did that. So it was challenging. And I would say for the next ones that I do, and I do plan to do some more of them soon, very soon actually, I might actually warp the loom today. But I am going to definitely do that hem stitch on each of them, on either end, and try that method and see which one I like better, because zigzagging this was a nightmare. I basically tried to do not quite a satin stitch, but pretty close. I tried to make sure that I was catching as much as I could of warp and weft on the ends. And so it makes it a little bit wider on either end just from sewing it, as opposed to, like, I feel like that, because when I finished, it was not wider on either end, but I feel like the process of running it through the sewing machine and doing the zigzag made it kind of flare at either end. But here's one of them. And like I said, I got 7 of them out of it. So here's some of the different ones I got. Here's another, pretty similar. And here is another. And each one is slightly different. On my Instagram, I had put a video of all of them. So if you go to my Instagram, you'll see it there. This one has more, I think I did this one when I did my warping, or my weft. I think I did all of the variegated on this one. Here you can kind of see some of these, where is it? Let's see if, yeah, here you can kind of see a little bit of the floats that I had. And that's just from inexperience, you know, just learning how to not catch the warp one, unless I mean to, because sometimes you mean to have floats because it's part of the design, but in this case it wasn't. It's just what I think is called tabby weaving, which is just straight weaving. And that is where you're not intending to catch any of the warp threads to create any kind of pattern or design or anything. It's just back and forth weaving with moving the yarn. It's a rigid heddle loom, did I say that? So moving the heddle so that I have my upper warp and my lower warp. I'm still learning the terms, whatever. My upper warp and my lower warp, and then you reverse them as you switch sides that you're weaving. Weavers will understand what I'm talking about. I'm not doing a good job explaining this. Yeah, so I feel like the next ones will be better, and each time I do it, it'll be better. So the next ones I'm going to gift to somebody who's moving into a new place, and she doesn't know it. I don't think she watches my podcast, so I'm not really worried about it. And I'm hoping that I'll, you know, pretty quickly learn that hem stitch, and they'll turn out better. Hopefully they won't be flared on the end, because I'm not going to zigzag them. I'm not planning on zigzagging them. We shall see. Okay. That is the weaving. More to come. You're definitely going to see weaving on this channel because I do intend to do a lot of weaving. So you're going to see all kinds. I have some great inspirations out there. We'll talk about them to the end. Republic of Me has been a great inspiration, and Fiber Love Diary, just because, you know, Republic of Me, that's Ivana, right? Ivana, I think is her name. She is just so relaxed with it. And Fiber Love Diary, she's just really good at it, and she makes it just look so simple, and she kind of dumbs it down a little bit for you and really helps you understand it. And she's actually I've been watching that one the most when it comes to trying to learn this. Okay, more finished objects. The other thing I finished, so I don't have because I was learning weaving, I don't have a ton that I finished, but we did go on vacation. While on vacation, I did finish some socks. So this is Suburban Stitchers Starstruck. I don't remember what the base is. This is a fingering weight, and it is a superwash merino nylon blend. But this is her Starstruck base, or her Starstruck colorway. And I just did my, you know, my own design shorties where I do my little racing stripe. So, and I do them mirror imaged, so that way they look like the racing stripe goes down the third of the top of the foot on either side of on the outside of each foot. So there is definitely a right and a left. I mean, not that you have to wear them that way, but there's definitely a right and a left. They're still a little damp. I just washed them. I typically machine wash my socks for the most part. There's one pair I discovered they can't even go in the washing machine because they have yak in them and they felted. And I talked about that, I think, the last time. Those were my husband's socks, and we discovered that yak felts. So I have to hand wash those and gently hand wash, even though it's superwash yarn that it's spun with and nylon, the yak part felts. And it pills terribly, and when I wash it, my hands are just like covered with yak fiber. So I don't think I'm gonna, as lovely as it was to knit with, I'm probably not ever gonna make socks with that again. Maybe something else, but not socks for sure. It's just not meant for, yak is just not meant for socks. Mohair is better than yak for socks. So these turned out really well. They're still a little damp. And then, so after I machine wash, I always put them on my blockers and hang them up to dry in the laundry room. So at any one time, there's usually at least a couple pairs of socks hanging in the laundry room because sometimes I forget they're hanging in there. But I did finish these, so that was kind of fun. And I have another pair that I am doing right now. Actually, we can pull them out. And I think actually we might be ready for whips. So yeah, let's go diving right into whips. You're going to see this as an maybe we should talk about this right now too. Maybe I should mix in my acquisitions. Anyway, when we were on vacation, we went to Connecticut. Flew into Boston, stayed 4 nights in Connecticut in an adorable Airbnb, and I'll put some pictures and video in here, maybe at the end. And then we spent a night in Delaware with my brother, and then we drove from Delaware and spent 4 nights down in Norfolk, Virginia. Kind of just trying to scout out the East Coast, eventually maybe to retire there. Not really sure when or where, but kind of just getting a feel for things. I'm originally from the East Coast. Anyway, so one of the places we had gone to was, I always try to get some kind of yarny souvenirs when we travel, and typically it's usually yarn, but there were a few things that caught my eye while I was in the yarn store. But this is like a dumpling bag. So this has got a shorter side and a longer side, and you just put the longer side into the shorter one, and there you go. And it is literally the perfect size for socks 2 at a time, which is how I always do them. So you could definitely do like maybe you might even get like kids project if you're making kids sweaters and jumpers and cardigans and stuff like that would definitely fit in here. Maybe some just smaller projects, but it holds my 2 skeins of yarn, my 2 half skeins of yarn are in here, and it holds them perfectly fine, along with all my other stuff that I keep with me. But, so I did cast on, since I finished those while I was traveling, I did cast on another pair of socks. And this is similar to a pattern. I'm gonna have to put the name of the pattern down here. This is similar to a pattern I saw on Purl, I think it was Purl Soho or Modern Daily Knitting, I can't remember. But it's like this rib, but it's an interesting rib because it is over 8 stitches. This repeat is over 8 stitches, and it's not all uniform. Like it's not all knit 2, purl 2, knit 1, purl 1, whatever. It's pretty unique. And I don't want to, I think it's a paid pattern, so I don't want to give too much away, but I kind of like looked at the picture and figured it out and was like, oh, I can do that. So yeah, I was able to kind of mimic, I guess, not really copy, but kind of mimic that pattern because I don't think it's identical. Anyway, so I love this bag. This line has a lining, has a pink lining. There are no pockets, it's just a straight lining. And the colors just called my name. When I saw this hanging in the little shop we visited, the colors just called my name. And you can see who it's made by. And I think she might be like a local maker. And the store, it's called Baba Sheep in Norfolk. They carry her bags, and I think she's local. I try when I'm traveling to always buy my souvenirs from local makers, either local yarn dyers, local yarn makers, like people who spin yarn, hand spun, or something like that, something that's locally made in some way. And this, I always ask the shop, whoever's in the shop, what they have that is from local makers, either yarn or project bags or whatever. So the colors on this, when I saw this hanging on this little rack, she had like a coat rack sort of, or a hat rack. When I saw this hanging on there, I just like totally fell in love with it. I was like, oh my God, I have to have that, because this is like me in bag form. Just the colors, the pattern, the happiness of it. It's just so cheerful. And then pink is my favorite color. And so it has a pink liner. So yeah. So that's one of my acquisitions, but it's also one of my works in progress. And I like to keep this. This stays in my purse, my work bag, where I carry my laptop to and from work. It stays in there. There's plenty of room in that. It's like a tote bag, and I stick this inside there. I tend to use like little pouches and stuff in my tote bags so that I don't lose things in the bottom. So this just pops right into my tote bag, and I love that I can actually like stand in line, and I could do something like this. I could be like standing in line somewhere or waiting somewhere and just totally be working on my project. It's really super portable, and I love that. So that's one of my works in progress and one of my acquisitions, and we'll go over acquisitions later because I know not everybody likes to watch the acquisitions part. Some of them are just going to get mixed in. That's just the way it is. The other work in progress is my Joni top. So if you follow me on Instagram, some of my hairs, you will have seen some of the pictures of my Joni top. So this was kind of a frustrating little start and stop kind of project, but it's interesting construction because you do one of these shoulders. I think it's the right shoulder first. You do this little piece, then you cut the yarn and put it on stitch holders, and then you do the rest of the back. And I don't think I'm giving the pattern away by saying this because it's just a construction thing. And it's not like it's super unique. I've had other patterns do this. So you do this like little back piece, and then you start working on the front, and then eventually you're gonna bring it, you get to a certain point, the armhole length, and then you just knit in the round. But it's really cool because if you see the Joni top, oops, oh, hello. If you see the Joni top online, and I'll try and put a picture here of just the first page of the pattern, so I'm not giving anything away. I had seen actually who made the Joni top in the same color, and I loved it. This yarn is called Zoe, and it's, believe it or not, it's the exact same yarn I used for these. It's the exact same yarn. It's a cotton linen, and I like it's on the front now. I'm working on the front section. Has this lace. You can see it's like this ribbed design on the sides and on the body too. But in the center, you can kind of see there's like this lace panel in the center, and it's charted. And I actually love working from charts, and it's going, that's where I had to tink back like 5 or 6 rows of, thankfully, just the front section. But I had to tink back 5 or 6 rows because I realized I had made a mistake. And when I picked it up after having not worked on it overnight, I forgot to move on the pattern, on the chart, I forgot to move I used a piece of like highlighter tape, and I forgot to move it up. And so I redid the next row accidentally. And then I just kept going in pattern on the wrong side, basically. So when I was on the right side, I should have been on the wrong side, and vice versa. So I had to tink it back, and I only tinked it back. I didn't rip it back, only because I was afraid I was going to lose where the markers are supposed to be, because there's a couple stitch markers in there. I don't know if you can see them. There's a pink one, and there's a blue one. And we'll talk about those in a second too, because they're from Cocoa Knits. But I was afraid I was going to lose where those are supposed to go. And I was also afraid because down here is actually like you cast on a whole bunch of, like using backwards loop cast on. You cast on from the center part, and I was really afraid I was going to lose that cast on, and I didn't want to do that. So I just tinked back to where I discovered the problem happened and just started knitting it again, and it's turning out perfectly. So the lace is 100% perfect, and it's fun to knit. And again, this is Zoe, and I have another acquisition on here. These little stitch marker or needle ends. You can actually use them as like, they can go on your straight needles as like a needle topper. You just slide them up and they're a needle topper, but they're like silicone, and they just have a little hole in them, and you just slide them on, and you can hold your project and keep them from falling off the needles. It works pretty great. I really like that. So this is one of my works in progress. And again, this is that same yarn. Actually, no, that one was a rowan. This one's called Zoe. Do I have, yeah, I have 2 more balls. So I got 3 balls of it. I'm gonna have plenty of yarn. It is, let's see, I have one that doesn't have a price sticker right there. I don't think I do. Anyway, it's a beautiful snowy white color. It's a nice, cool, crisp white. It's not a warm white, and I do better with crisp, cool colors. But it's called Zoe. You can kind of see all the info right there. This is color number 1, called Sea Salt. And it is 60 cotton, 40 linen, so it is a blend, but it's more cotton than linen. It is, I've never understood when podcasters call a yarn dry. It's totally dry when you're knitting with it. Now I totally get it. And it's not the most pleasant to work with for long periods of time, because because just having to try and work with it, it's a little more challenging than, like, say, a merino wool. And so your hands do get a little tired, and sometimes I'll get like on my finger because I slide things with my fingertip. Sometimes I'll get a little bit sore right there just from the dryness and the texture of the yarn. But this is, wait for it, it is by Juniper Moon Farm, and it is called Zoe. And it is number 2 fine, which I think this is a sport. I'm 99.9% sure this is a sport weight. It is, where is the gauge on here? Let's see, it's 100 grams, 284 yards. So for 100 grams, it is 260 meters. And in ounces, it's 3.52 ounces to 284 yards. I'm 99% sure this is sport weight. And I really like it. Actually, I would buy more of this. I would make something else with it. For summer knitted items or crocheted items, this is in sport weight. This is actually really, really good. You just probably don't want to work for hours and hours on end. Although I have. I have, to be fair. And without complaint, I will also add. So yeah, it was, I mean, when I bought it, it wasn't cheap. It was $21 per 100 grams. Or per, $21 per 100 grams. So, but still cheaper than buying this top if I were to buy it in the store. So that is another work in progress. And this is pretty much it for my works in progress. So I showed you my, Battenberg blanket. I am still working my Battenberg blanket. It's kind of on hold because, hello, weaving has kind of taken over my extra time, such as a bee right now. Let's see, working, consulting the notes. Oh, I should talk about what I'm wearing. So this is, do you remember a couple episodes back? I can't remember if it was the last episode or the one before that where I talked about going to the Estes Park wool market, and I had found this gal there. I think I showed you some of the dish towels, tea towels that I had gotten from her with her designs, which are flipping adorable. I mean, you need to go online and buy her stuff because you will love it. It's adorable, doesn't even begin to describe it. And she has a great sense of humor. Somewhere here, I have the name of the company. So that is the name of the company that makes them. She is on Instagram, and I think it's, there's a gal who's the designer, and there's a gentleman, there's a guy she works with, and together they make the company, but I think she's actually the graphic designer. So that's their company, and this one is just adorable. Can you see it? Lay flat to dry. How cute is that? I loved all of her designs, and the t-shirt fits great. I would say this is a really comfortable t-shirt. I would definitely recommend it. It's really soft and it's screened. It's not like a transfer or something. It's screened on there, so it's going to last. It's going to stay. Highly recommend her designs, and the quality of the shirt is really good. So, all right. Now we're going to move into acquisitions. So if you don't like acquisitions, you can go speeding forward, and I will try to put down at the bottom, I'll try to put the minute that you need to forward to get to the next section, which is, we'll talk next about the podcasts I watch, and then we'll talk about the giveaway. Okay, so my acquisitions, as I showed you already, one of them is, don't get dizzy on me now, one of them is the loom. And that currently, by the way, is just like folded. It's just folded flat just for storage sake. But when it has something on it, it's perpendicular. Don't get dizzy. Okay, so that was one acquisition, and that was a big acquisition. That was like, honey, may I? Because that was a big acquisition. And basically it was my anniversary present. And then some. Because then you also need all the supplies that go with it. Ooh, I should show you the supplies. Hold please. And we're back. And hopefully I was able to edit some of that out. So the loom, when you get it, I mean, it's expensive, right? It's an investment. You're making an investment, and it's something that's going to last a lifetime and beyond. Like, this is something, if my kids ever took up weaving someday, I could hand it down to them. Not that that's ever going to happen, but you never know. But the nice thing is when you get it, it does come with extra dowels. So you have the apron, the front apron and the back apron that you're putting your warp onto. And then there are some skinny dowels, which I think those are meant for when you're using a finer gauge of some kind of, you know, in some cases threads for weaving. So it comes with these 2 skinny dowels too to use for that. I have a feeling I'll probably mostly be using the dowels that are on it already and then the extra set that it has. But oh, did I mention it has a 7.5 dent heddle? So it also came with a 7.5 dent heddle. There are other heddles you can get. I think an 8, a 10, and a 12, and maybe even bigger than that. I'm not sure. I'm still learning it, but it came with a 7.5, which is perfect for doing the dishcloths I'm doing. It also came with a couple of shuttles. And here's the name of the company actually right here. It came with a couple of shuttles. They're really well made. I don't know if they're birch or beech. Actually, I think they might be beechwood, if I'm not mistaken. I think the whole thing is beechwood, but they're very beautifully finished. They're actually made in Boulder, Colorado. So for me, they're like a local product. They're locally made. I am north of Boulder quite a bit, but I am in Colorado. And so this is a local Colorado product that is made here. These are all made here. So they're actually online. If you go online, you can find all their products on there. They don't just make the rigid heddle loom. They also make other types of looms too. Basically everything they do, I think everything they do is just for weaving. I haven't looked entirely on their website. But it comes with 2 of these. So I got 2 of these with it. And then the extra stuff that I bought, because I tried this when I was weaving at the store in my learning to weave sessions, I used what's called a boat shuttle. And I don't remember how big this one is. This one maybe looks like 15 inches. I don't think it's 18. I think this might be a 15-inch one. But this was nice because it goes up like this on the end, I found that I was catching less of the warps and I was having less floats than I did when I used these. These definitely have a purpose, and there are times when you can see it's got yarn on there that I was working with. There are times when I'll switch to this. The other thing you need when you're working with this is, and this is easier for me, you need a bobbin. So this is your bobbin. So I got 2 of these bobbins. So I got 1 boat shuttle. I purchased this extra. I got 1 boat shuttle and I got 2 bobbins for it so that at any one time I can work with at least 2 colors and not have to be constantly stopping and winding another bobbin. And it holds quite a bit on it. Like I could probably do a whole dishcloth with what's on here right now. And you just pop it in, pop it out. They have some other shuttles too that are pretty cool. Some of them actually can tension the yarn for you, which is really interesting, and maybe someday I'll get to that point, but for right now, they're very easy to, this is where you fish your yarn or your thread through. They're very, very easy to use, very user-friendly. So I bought this extra, and then this was that comb thing that I told you about that I bought extra. And you use this to kind of in this direction. So this curved part is down to like kind of bang down or push down the weft on the warp to make your selvage basically on either end, on the top and bottom. And also you can use it to comb your warp apart too. If you have, you know, when you're dressing your loom, you can use this to kind of comb your warp apart as you're rolling it onto the back apron or the back bar. And I have heard since then, that people use this really cheap, like hair picks that you can get like in the drugstores or the grocery store, that they also use those. But this is again from that same company, Schacht, and it is also beechwood and it is beautiful. It's the weight of it, it's very beautifully weighted and it works really well to hold in your hand when you're doing that action. So I could see where there's value in this, but I can also see where to save money if I needed something that had wider teeth. Definitely I could use a hair pick. I think I might have 2 or 3 of those around actually. So I could use a hair pick for that. So that's the stuff that I acquired for weaving. So Sorry for the knocking around and banging noises. We'll try to keep that to a minimum. Let's see, what else did I acquire? I also, on my vacation, yes. So, I also had to get craft paper for rolling onto the beam when you're rolling your warp. So I did get some craft paper too, and I already mentioned this yarn that I got for weaving. And I'll do more using, I'm gonna be able to make a ton of dishcloths with that yarn. So when I was on vacation, the first place I went to was in Connecticut, in Groton, Connecticut. I went to a place called Driftwood Yarns. Hi. And when I went into the store, I asked the shop owner specifically what she had that was local. She carried a lot of what I would call the factory produced yarns. Great. She had a great selection of those yarns, but she also had a wall that had indie dyed yarn. And she had some really interesting stuff there, actually. Actually, she had some really interesting like notions too, which was really cool. And they were branded to her. So she somehow had somebody make them for her, and they were all branded to her shop. Like my, like these needle stoppers, they were actually branded to her shop. And she did a really great job packaging them too. But so I asked about local yarn producers, either ideally somebody who actually spins and winds yarn, or a mill or something, to get some like maybe local sheep yarn, because I would imagine there's probably some of that not too far away. And she didn't have any. She actually was not too aware of what there might be that's Connecticut based, but she did have some local dyers there, and they were all really cool. And I honestly, like, I actually had a hard time choosing because there was so much of it that I was like, oh, I love this. The color sense is just fabulous. But okay, so this is the first one. And this one is called Space Garbage. And when I saw this one, and I don't know that really you're seeing the colors. Oh, look at that. I don't know if you're really seeing the colors as I saw them in the store and as I see them right now with my eyes. But the colors that are in here, oh, maybe if I cover my face, are just amazing. So it's got like this base of like a gray that has kind of a purple undertone. But look at this color that's like just like flashing right through it. Just like all these colors just flash through this gray. And it's just amazing. So I don't know what I'm gonna make with it. Probably several pairs of socks, because it's sock weight yarn. It is fingering. It is 463 yards to 100 grams. It is 75-25 superwash merino and nylon. She calls it classic sock, and it is from Earth and Empress Fibers, and she is local there in Connecticut. She does have a website or a Etsy shop. So maybe you can see that. Check her out on Etsy. I did pay that much for it. And I'm really anxious to get started using it. But my husband was with me. We were on vacation. And I was like, okay, this is going to benefit you too. So pick a yarn. Let's see which one you want some socks in, because he loves my hand knit socks. And so same dyer, I got this one. So a lot of neutrals. This will be great for basically all year round. All these neutral colors. There's grays and beiges and black and brown. This one is called Hibernate. And it's the same blend of 75-25 superwash merino and nylon. And yeah, this will be fun to knit up too, because these speckled and variegated yarns are just fun to work with, because as you knit along, you'll just suddenly get a little splash of color. They're just great to work with. And this is this would be the one if I were to pick this one for him, because I had him pick his own. If I were to pick one for him, this was actually one of the ones I kind of knew he was going to lean towards. So we got that. And then when we went down to Norfolk, Virginia, I went into, and I think, oh no, I should show you the other things. I think I mentioned also that she had some great notions too at Driftwood Yarns. And I've already put these, they're stitch holder or stitch markers, and I've already kind of mixed them in with, like, this is my tin of stitched markers, and I've, like, they're all in here. Like, it's a mishmash for sure. But she had some really cool ones that were like these. She had gold, and they come in a variety of sizes, and they look like jewelry. Like, that's what attracted me, is they're so shiny. Oop, just dropped one. They actually look like, and I don't know if you could see it, but I had gotten gold and silver. So I got a set of gold and a set of silver ones. And then they're different sizes in, they're an assortment of sizes in the little bag that they came in. And they really caught my eye because I like ones that are like this, that are like skinny. Let's see if I can grab one. Because if your stitch markers are too thick and too big, I feel them. I'm a continental knitter, and I don't know if it's the way I hold my yarn, my needles or what, but I will feel them. And over time, if I'm using these markers, if there's a lot of them in a project, or I'm doing a bigger project where I'm having constantly slide those back and forth, they'll start to irritate me a little bit. But when they're skinny ones like this, they're much easier for me to work with. So I really like these. Those were really pretty, and I had to have those. Had to have them. But when I went to Norfolk, which is where I got this bag, I've never, I don't know why, but I've just never bought any of the Cocoa Knit stuff. And my local yarn shop carries these products too. And I might end up getting more, because these are the little stitch markers that are in the size, I think they're in size 7. There's 10 in here. There are 6 colors, 10 of each. You can read, I'm sure. And these are the smallest ones that they make, which I believe are the equivalent of a size 7 knitting needle. And then there's, I think, size 10 and size 15. I can't remember. It does come in other sizes too. But here's the stitch markers. And these are great. I 100% love these for sock knitting and for small gauge knitting. They're super smooth. They're metal, and they're coated in like that enameled paint or something like that. And they slide super easily, and you barely feel them on your needles when you're working with them. They fit nice and closely to the needle. But because they're these bright colors, you can see them pretty easily. Depending on what you're working on, you can see them pretty easily. So I have, actually I'm using 2 of them on the Joni top. So I got that. And then I also got, now this I love, because this is again a local yarn dyer. The yarn itself is not milled and spun there, but the yarn is dyed by a local yarn dyer. And what I love about this yarn is that it's also naturally dyed. So these use acid dyes. And, you know, if you watch enough podcasts, you kind of get to learn the difference between acid dyeing and natural dyeing. And they both have their pros and cons, right? I'm not super crazy about superwash, and I'm not super crazy about acid dyes just because of environmental reasons, but they have their place. I just don't make everything out of it. This is also superwash. I love this color combination together. I don't know why, but I just love this. Like camel color with this gentle, soft peach tone. I just love that. And I may use them together, I may not, I'm not sure. I just have these 2 skeins. I'm not sure what I'll make with them, but I really bought them so that I could put them together if I wanted to, or I could use them separately. These, I think you just saw this is the yarn dyer, and she is local to Norfolk. This one is, it says right on the back, it's dyed with, and you can see how much it cost. It's dyed with black walnut hulls. And people who do natural dyeing, you probably recognize that about this yarn. It doesn't say anything about using any iron or anything like that. This is 100% superwash merino. There is no nylon in it. It is 438 yards to 100 grams. And it is 27 to 32 stitches for 4 inches. So maybe light fingering. And they're both the same. This one, however, is dyed with madder root. And again, if you do natural dyeing, you probably recognize that. This is madder. I will show you the tag. Madder root. So I love them together. I don't know what I'll make with it. It's gonna kind of sit in like waiting for inspiration kind of space. But I love these colors and I love them together. And I think they look good on me, but they would also be great for a gift. Yeah, so I got those. And I think that might be it. Yeah, I think that's it for my acquisitions. I really liked Driftwood Yarns in Groton, Connecticut, and I really liked Baba Sheep quite a lot too. That's Ba Sheep in Norfolk, Virginia. I like that store quite a lot too. Both were great shops. I would say the one thing I notice when I'm traveling is maybe I'm just lucky where I live and that there are quite a few yarn shops in my region. But and maybe it's a Colorado thing because we right now it's summer, so it's very hot, but we are generally speaking a 4 seasons state, and where we live we have 4 full seasons, and it does get very cool, very cold here. But when I travel, I always try to stop in some kind of local yarn shop, and I was really surprised, not so surprised about how few there were in Virginia because it's a warmer climate, but I think really more Connecticut surprised me that there weren't more shops, especially with maybe more indie yarns, local yarns, art yarns, things like that. Because I don't know that Driftwood Yarns had too many art yarns either. But I was really surprised how few yarn shops there were in the New London, Connecticut area. So maybe New Haven has more. Maybe Hartford has more. Maybe if New London's not far from Boston, definitely go up to Boston to yarn shops. You'd have to make a special trip out of it, but I'm always surprised that there aren't more yarn shops because it's a pretty popular craft. Yeah, so I think that's it for my acquisitions. Next, we'll talk about the podcasts I have been loving watching. And so there's a brand new one. If you're on Instagram and you follow Flannel and Pearls, I think it's Flannel and Pearls actually. He just started a podcast called Flannel and Pod, and he's a natural. He did a trailer first, like an intro trailer first, which was like a short of maybe 25 seconds, something like that. And he just recorded just put up his very first episode. And he's a natural. You just love watching him and listening to him. His delivery is great. His material and content is great. He highly edits, so he does have a lot of interest because he'll get different camera angles and things like that. I don't know how he does it. If he has 2 cameras running at the same time, one here and one here, maybe 2 devices running at the same time. But he's great. Very funny, very creative, a pleasure to watch. I think you definitely should check him out and subscribe to his channel and give him a watch. I think you'll really enjoy him, especially if you like to chuckle a little bit while you're watching your podcasts. He's so interesting. I love Amy Palco. Honestly, anytime she puts a video up, I watch hers because they're very relaxing. She's also very inspiring, and I love to see what she's working on. Again, I said this last time, it is a Sarah, so it's Sarah with an H on the end. She is from Norway, and she records 2 episodes a week, but in 2 different languages, in English and in Norwegian. So she's basically recording 4 times a week. I don't know how she does it, but hers are great episodes. I absolutely love. She primarily does crochet, but she does also knit. And I just absolutely love watching her. They're not long. They're only a half hour, 25 minutes to a half hour long. I mean, this is going to be an hour long by the time I'm done here. In a perfect world, I will have like 20, 25-minute episodes. We shall see. The other one I mentioned was, now I remember, it was called Rehash Fiber. Rehash Fiber is a wonderful informational weaving channel. Not super flashy, very simple, very basic. She does great projects, very easily accessible. I imagine her skill set, she probably could do some very complicated things, but she had some great tutorials, I would guess I would call them, on the rigid heddle loom. And so that's how I found her when I was looking for weaving tutorials. And she's great. Very, very simple, very down to earth, nothing fancy, but very, very good at explaining things. So Rehash Fiber is one to check out if you're looking at getting into weaving. The other one for getting into weaving, I also highly, I mean, it's probably my top favorite when it comes to weaving, is Fiber Love Diary. And that's Trish at Fiber Love Diary. And she does a little bit of everything, because she also dyes her own yarn, and she does knitting and crochet too, and spinning and weaving. Yeah, spinning and weaving. Like, she does all the fiber crafts. But I found her because I was looking for dishcloth patterns and how to kind of prepare and dress my loom. And actually I was watching her before I even knew that I wanted to weave, and said, hey, I think I'd like to try weaving. I actually had stumbled upon her podcast and watched her warping her loom, and I was like, that's fascinating, show me more. And so I have binge watched so many of her episodes, and I absolutely love her down to earth delivery and style, and she's funny, and she's like easygoing, easy to listen to, really interesting. She puts a soundtrack with her whole video, which makes it a little more interesting too. I might do that someday, I don't know. Flannel and Pod also did that, which was great. And then the last podcast I'm going to talk about, and this is kind of related to my giveaway. You may know her on Instagram because she's very, very active on Instagram. And if you are a knitter and you are a knitting podcaster or a fiber podcaster, she probably has found you and has interacted with you in some way on Instagram. It is Yarn.Is.A.Sport. So it's yarn.is.a.sport. And her name is Dawn Griswold. And she is somewhere in the Midwest. I'm not sure exactly, because for a while I think she was living in an RV, and says in her episode she was a Navy brat, and so she, they moved all over. So when you listen to her talk, is she Midwestern? Is she Canadian? Is she from the East? Like, you can't tell where she's from. She has a bit of a Canadian, something about her, the way she says some words sound very Canadian, which may be from living in New England. But she is just so gentle, and so, like, she just exudes just a sweetness. There's just a sweetness about her, but she has a fun sense of humor. So while she has this sweet and gentle personality, she will throw in a zinger now and then, and you will just find yourself chuckling. And I just love that about her. Her podcasts are very relaxing and easy to watch, but you'll also give a little chuckle now and then, because she's self-deprecating and she's just got a very fun sense of humor. She's been following me and my Instagram account for a few years, and I actually have two. I have a personal one and the Purled Nest one. She's found me in both places, and some of you have found me in both places. And so I've been interacting with her for a few years. I just love communicating with her. She's just a really great person. She's retired about a year or two ago, maybe 2 years ago now. So she has a lot more time on her hands, but she started a podcast. So you'll have to give her a watch. I think she's like 20 episodes in. Like, she's doing them once a week. So she's got quite a few of them. And some of them were from Vlogmas. So she also has quite a bit of content built up already, actually. So give her a watch. She's still learning the ropes too, I'm constantly learning the ropes and learning from other podcasters that I love watching. But she is just the sweetest, kindest human being. And that said, we have a giveaway. And I'm going to give all credit to Dawn, for part of this, because she sent me 2 bags. And when I got this bag, watch my microphone. When I got this bag, I said to her, how did you find something with your name on it? Like, this couldn't be any more perfect. And actually she and her husband actually had these screen printed. So there's one for me that I'm going to keep, and then one we're going to use for the giveaway. I don't know if I can get the whole thing. This is like a drawstring backpack bag, which would be great if you're headed out. And let me tell you something, this thing is generous. You could fit a blanket project in here if you wanted, and then, take it on Maybe the idea behind this is because she did travel in an RV for a couple years on starting her retirement. She had to be very conscious of, like, it's like living in a tiny house. You have to be very conscious of everything you bring and how you store it. But this is a really great bag. You see what it says? Can you see it? It says, Yarn.Is.A.Sport. I am a professional yarn chicken athlete. And she told me that, like, the chicken part actually kind of inspired her, and I just love that it says Yarn.Is.A.Sport on it. So the giveaway, and we'll have a prompt for this. It's going to be a comment. There's a little more to it, but so you're going to get this bag, and inside the bag, or with the bag, when I send it to you, sorry for the crinkling, do you remember when I was dyeing yarns? I had done some yarn dyeing, and I want to say this actually didn't end up getting dyed. And that was because I loved the color as it was so much that I decided I'm just going to make a sweater out of this yarn with no dye on it. And it is so delightful to work with in your hands and delightful in a finished garment. But I have 4 extra skeins that I don't need, and I don't really see myself making another one of those sweaters or something else with it. So I'm going to give you 4 skeins of this. And I'm going to include even in there, and this is, so this was from Dyer Supplier, who is no longer in business. I believe they also do Knit Crate. I think they're focusing on their Knit Crate subscription platform, and they're no longer supplying yarn and dyeing supplies to dyers. And that was my primary source of my yarns when I was dyeing yarn. So I'm kind of like, then COVID happened, and all the suppliers just like dried up for any kind of yarns that you could order, yarn bases. So I kind of have stopped doing that a little bit just because it was so hard to get the yarn. I know eventually I'll get back to it. I've got all the stuff to do that. But this was their, let's see. Well, actually it has my address on it. This was from Dyer Supplier. This was their Elegance Superwash Merino, Mohair, and Silk Undyed Yarn. And let's see. It's like, this is bulky weight. And I wish you could feel this. Can you see that halo? That halo is amazing. And I wish you could actually feel this through the camera, because I'm not going to put it against my face because I'm going to be giving this away, but it is so squishy and so soft and is such a delight to work with. And I just don't think I'm going to, after I made my first sweater, I don't think I'm going to make another one out of this, because I've been there, done that. I don't usually make things again. And I would love to see somebody maybe dye this up. I would love to see you, especially if you love natural dyeing, I would love to see you dye this up. Or you love it the way it is, or you do acid dyes, I don't care. Or maybe you just like me and you just love this the way it is in its natural color, because it's so pretty. And I don't know if you can see the sheen that it has, and that's the silk that's in it. But it has quite a bit of mohair, so it does shed quite a bit. So if you do that whole thing where you put it in the freezer, you will likely be able to stop some of that shedding. In fact, you can kind of see some of it right now. But I'm also going to include, it came when I got it, because this is meant as supplies for dyers. It came with all these, whoops, I think I dropped one. It came with all these zip ties, and I don't know why it has so many in here, because I know I used for the 4 that I dyed, or the 4 that I used, oh, that's why, because I didn't dye it. It came with all of these zip ties. So you attach the zip tie to the skein when you're dyeing it. It allows you to take it in and out of the pot without having to grab the skein. You just grab this. There's tutorials online, watch the videos, you'll see them. I actually have, I think, some tutorials or videos of yarn dyeing online. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4 skeins. So I'm going to give away these 4 skeins of this yummy, I mean luxury. This is luxury yarn. This is delightful luxury yarn. I'm going to give away these 4 skeins of yarn and one of those Yarn.Is.A.Sport bags. And maybe I'll throw a little treat of some kind in there with it. But here's the thing. So it's not just going to be like random pick. It's going to be random pick, but it's going to be random pick from people who have responded to a prompt. So what you have to do is you are going to have to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and you're going to have to comment with this prompt. The project I am loving working on right now is, and then tell me what the project is. There's a couple reasons that I'm using this prompt. One is I'm nosy and I want to know what everybody's working on and what they're loving working on. And if you want to share why you're loving it, that would be awesome. But also it kind of gives me ideas for content going forward too, because maybe there's an episode I could do where I include some of those ideas in my podcast. So don't forget, here are the rules for the giveaway. And I will announce the giveaway winner in the next podcast, which will most likely be a month from now because I seem to be on 1 month cycles. So you must like this video, you must subscribe to my channel, and you must comment using the prompt, the project I am loving working on right now is blank. It could be any make. It could be sewing, it could be knitting, it could be crochet, it could be weaving, it could be spinning, it could be yarn dyeing. Like whatever you're doing, whatever you're making right now, maybe it's paper piecing, quilting, whatever it is you are just loving working on. I would love to hear about it. I love to know what everybody's, into, what everybody's, enjoying. And I get ideas for myself. Ooh, sorry. I get ideas for myself too from that. So hopefully you enjoy this as much as I do. This was just so fun to get. And Dawn, thank you so much. I'm sure you're probably watching. I just want to thank you for this opportunity to be able to expose your podcast to other viewers, as well as allow them to get one of your products. So the last thing we're going to talk about is life updates. We're done with the knitting content, we're done with the weaving content, we're done with the fiber content. So if that's all you came for, thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you next time. But I'll do a real quick wrap up, and then at the end I'll put some videos of things I have kind of over the last month compiled. But so we did have, since we last visited, we did have what we believe was a bear attack our chicken coop. And if you follow me on Instagram, you also saw that 2 of the hens were killed by the bear. So that was terrifying. It's something I hope I never experience again. And it's very likely that right before I went out at first light in the morning, maybe it was me opening the back door that probably scared away the animal, because it had just happened when I went out there. And again, it was first light in the morning. So not a way you want for your hens to go. It was terrible. And it's almost coop cleaning time. So you're going to see probably in maybe, I don't know if it'll be in the September one or October, depending on it really depends on how the weather goes. And if the weather stays nice, I kind of hold off a little longer if I can for the deep coop cleaning that I do twice a year. So that'll be coming up soon too. Not sure when that's going to happen. Otherwise, the hens are doing fine. I've got one hen who seems like she's hanging on to life by a thread, but she just, like a trooper, just keeps hanging in there. She's old. But they're also slowing down on their egg laying. And with my 11 hens that I have left now, I'm only getting about 2 eggs a day. So slackers. The additions come along great. House is looking amazing. I am not going to put too many more pictures or videos up because I want to preserve my family's privacy, but just know that this very big kind of project that is kind of putting our yard and our house in some chaos is coming along great. My husband's doing an amazing job on it, and his design sense is incredible, and it's going to look just beautiful when it's done. Maybe when it's all done, I might put a picture or 2 up so that you can appreciate his hard work. He is a general building contractor. He is a senior project manager that works for another company, but he is doing our own project himself, and he's incredible. His work is incredible. We did take our vacation, And as I already talked about that, we saw some family while we were there. So I have some family in some of those states we visited and had a wonderful time seeing them and spending some time with them. Even if it was very brief, it was just so nice to get to spend a little time with them. But I do have to keep my day job for a little while longer. So the whole, retirement is still a little bit in the distance, but it is definitely a goal now. You will probably see on my Instagram very soon some very exciting things for us. We did haven't officially taken delivery of our little catamaran yet, but we did get a small catamaran, a little Hobie cat that we are really looking forward to sailing locally on some lakes and maybe eventually inshore, doing a little inshore sailing if we ever live near the ocean. So that's it for the life wrap up, and I am hoping that there is no excitement coming in the next month other than getting our little boat and being able to take it out and do a little bit of sailing before the cool weather comes. But really looking forward to the next few weeks and doing a lot more weaving, getting my Joni top done, and enjoying my family, my house, and my friends, and you as a community, because you know what, you guys on Instagram, here on YouTube, you're as much a part of my community as my coworkers and my local friends and family. So I just love interacting with you. Please do continue to post your comments on my Instagram. Follow me on Ravelry. I'm on Ravelry as Specialkholla, so follow me on Ravelry too. I'm not sure if I'll ever do a channel or any kind of groups for my channel on Ravelry yet. Maybe if this gets a little bigger and I get a little bit more followers, I might. But for right now, I just don't have the bandwidth for it. But you can also follow me on Ravelry. I am Specialkholla. So hopefully you enjoyed this. Hopefully I can edit it down to make it a little shorter. But I hope to see you again next month, and happy crafting. Bye guys.